Good evening, everyone. I'm your storyteller, and tonight I'll take you into online dates that turn into pure horror. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where and when you're watching. Now, prepare yourself for the fear that lies ahead. Episode 1: The Stranger by the Road. My name is Richard Miller, 42 years old, a long-haul truck driver. 20 years roaming America's highways have taught me many things. How to read the sky to know when rain is coming, how to listen to the engine and guess how many more miles it could endure, and even how to look into a stranger's eyes and know if he was honest or not. But one thing, not until the summer of 2003 did I truly understand. Sometimes the road is not just wind, asphalt, and lonely headlights. It also hides secrets you'd best never stumble into. That night, I was driving my old Peterbilt hauling lumber from Oklahoma City to Amarillo. August in the Midwest was scorching like fire. The air was thick, sweltering, and the smell of melting asphalt seeped through the cracks of the truck door. I rolled down the window for air, but what rushed in was only hot breath on my face, carrying the burnt scent of grass from the roadside fields. The engine roared beneath my feet, a monotonous yet familiar rhythm. Along the highway stretched only darkness. Occasionally, a flash of neon from a shabby bar in some small town streaked past, leaving a red smear in the rearview mirror. I sipped a mouthful of stale coffee from the thermos, its harsh bitterness clinging to my tongue and burning my throat, but at least it kept me awake. Around midnight, when the dashboard clock flipped to 12:07, I saw flashing lights ahead on the roadside. An old convertible sedan sat dead, hood popped, white steam billowing like soufflé smoke. Beside the car stood a thin man, messy brown hair. He waved frantically, arms flailing like a drowning man clutching at anything. I instantly remembered stories from fellow drivers. Robbers staging breakdowns to lure truckers into stopping. Not rare. I was about to press the gas and pass, but as my headlights swept across his face, drenched in sweat, skin pale, lips trembling, I saw in those wide eyes not only fear, but something else. Desperation. I don't know why. Maybe instinct, maybe weeks of solitude making me crave a voice beside me. I hit the brakes, stopping a few meters away. Heat rose from the asphalt, seeping into the cab. I pulled the handbrake and stepped out. The night wind slapped my face with the rusty smell of the old car, mixed with the sweet, acrid stench of evaporating coolant. The ticking of the overheated engine sounded like meat sizzling on hot oil. "Car trouble?" I asked, my voice hoarse with thirst. The man nodded hard, as if afraid I'd change my mind and leave. I'm Mark, heading toward Amarillo. The radiator boiled over. I tried topping it up, but I think the tank's cracked. Can you give me a lift? I swear, I just need to get out of this damned place." I studied him closer. His white shirt was stained with grease, his arms shook, yet his eyes never left the road behind him, as if he was waiting for someone to appear. A chill ran down my spine, but I still nodded. "Get in. There's no service station within 30 miles on this road." Mark climbed into the passenger seat, slamming the door. I restarted the truck, the tachometer needle screaming, merging with the pounding in my chest. The cab suddenly felt heavier, his sweat mixing with stale coffee in the suffocating air. We sat in silence for a while, only the wheels humming against asphalt. I glanced at him. His trembling hand rested on his thigh, fingers tapping rapidly. "What are you looking over your shoulder for?" I asked, trying to sound calm. Mark turned, eyes wide, gaze wary. "Nothing, just there are a few people I don't want to run into. If they catch up, there'll be trouble." He gave a forced smile, but I heard the dry swallow stuck in his throat. And then a vague feeling crept over me. I might have picked up someone I shouldn't have. We kept driving. The highway stretched like a black thread into the night. On the horizon, thin lightning flickered, illuminating dry cornfields. A thunderstorm was closing in. My stomach growled, all day surviving only on crackers. When I saw the faint glow of a Route 66 diner sign ahead, I turned in. The building was shabby, the neon open sign flickering like the eyes of a dying man. Grease and cigarette smoke rushed out as I pushed the door open. The diner was nearly empty, just a few farmers hunched over coffee. I chose a corner table, Mark sitting opposite. His head hung low, hair covering his forehead, fingers twisting a napkin to shreds. I ordered a burger. He only asked for water. When the waitress left, Mark suddenly looked up, his face drained of color, eyes wide on the door. Instinctively, I turned. 3 men walked in. The glass door rattled behind them. Tattoos coiled across necks and arms, eyes cold as steel knives scanning the room. The air froze, as if all oxygen was sucked out. The hum of the air conditioner suddenly deafened. Grease in my mouth turned bitter. Mark whispered, voice trembling, "Damn it, they found me." The diner shrank smaller as the 3 advanced. Sickly yellow neon spilled across scarred faces, faded ink blurring on their skin. The door shut with a dry click, sounding like a lock sealing fate. I heard Mark swallow. The stench of half-burned cigarettes mixed with the sour sweat pouring from him. "Stay put," I muttered, as if to myself. But Mark didn't hear, his eyes glued to them, whites overtaking pupils. One, bald, shoulders broad as a steel cabinet, neck wrapped in dragon tattoos, scanned the diner. When his gaze hit Mark, his lips curled, revealing yellow teeth. "Well, look here, finally found the runaway rat," he rasped, voice gravelly like crushed stones. Mark shrank, fists clenched purple. I knew I shouldn't get involved, but watching him dragged off wasn't in my nature. 20 years on the road, I'd seen many things, but never abandoned someone in trouble right before me. I stood, chair screeching on tile. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice steady, "he's with me. Whatever it is, deal with it tomorrow." The bald man turned, eyes dark as tar. "None of your business, old man." My heart hammered, each beat like a sledge. The other 2 had already spread, one blocking the door, one circling behind Mark. The diner grew heavy as lead, even the ceiling fan seemed frozen, leaving only the sharp tick of the wall clock. Mark whispered, "Richard, please, don't." But too late. The bald one stepped closer, veined hand reaching for Mark's shoulder. Without thinking, I stepped between them. His body reeked of leather and cheap whiskey. I said, "He's with me. To touch him, you go through me first." A coarse laugh burst from his throat. The other 2 sneered, their laughter scraping like metal on glass. "You think you're a hero?" the bald man growled. 3 against 1. You think you'll survive?" I didn't answer. My hand gripped the table edge, feeling rough wood cutting my palm. Adrenaline surged, making the grease-filled air suffocating. Suddenly, Mark jumped up, chair toppling. "Run!" he shouted. Like a spark to gasoline, the diner exploded into chaos. The bald man lunged. I spun, shoving him aside. We crashed into another table, hot coffee splashing, steam burning my face. Mark slipped out, but the man at the door lunged. A flash of steel glinted, folding knife under neon light. "Mark!" I roared, but my shout drowned in the chaos. I lunged, grabbing the knife hand. Cold steel grazed my skin, the reek of rust thick. He slashed, blade searing across my arm, leaving fire. Mark broke free, sprinting toward the lot. Glass door banged open, night wind rushing in with damp earth before the storm. "Get him!" the bald man thundered. They chased. I staggered, blood dripping from my arm onto tile, crimson under the lights. I knew I should stop, let go, but my legs carried me outside. Thunder cracked, illuminating the lot. Mark ran frantic, a small figure in white flashes. The three pounded behind, shoes like war drums. I yelled, "Mark, to the truck! Run!" But he stumbled, nearly falling. Lightning tore sky open. I saw the bald man raise the knife, steel glinting, aimed at his back. No thought, only instinct. I roared, slammed my 90-kilo frame into him. A sickening thud, both of us crashing to concrete. A sharp stab pierced my side. Breath caught, metallic blood flooding my nose. I didn't need to look. The knife had found flesh. Mark's scream mixed with thunder. Wind scattered dust and gas fumes from a nearby pump. All blended into the suffocating stench of a nightmare's opening act. I forced up, blurry vision catching Mark staggering toward my truck, keys still in the ignition. He glanced back, eyes wild, helpless. "Richard, you okay?" His voice cracked in the storm. I tried to answer, but only a rasp escaped. The bald man crawled up, eyes blood red. Behind, the other two closed in on Mark. Pain stabbed my side, but one thought burned. No matter what, he had to survive. I rose through searing pain, breaths heavy, lungs filled with iron stench. The bald man stood, knife flashing in lightning, eyes glowing like embers. Farther, Mark ran, but the other two cornered him. He stumbled like hunted prey, gasping ragged. I shouted, voice broken, "Run! Mark, to the truck! Run!" He heard, but instead of fleeing, he turned back, his eyes torn, hand trembling toward me. In that instant I knew he couldn't leave me. Mistake. One thug closed in, fist hammering Mark's neck. He crashed to the concrete, crack echoing. "No!" I roared, throwing myself forward. The bald man blocked. His knife swung, lightning glinting. I raised my arm instinctively, steel sliced, blood pouring. I clenched teeth, ramming him. We tumbled, summer-heated pavement burning my back. Mark crawled up, horror in his eyes. "Richard, let's go!" He dashed to the Peterbilt. Keys clattered, engine roared alive. The sound tore the night, salvation and madness. "Don't let him escape!" the bald man bellowed, voice merging with thunder. The other two lunged, but Mark climbed into the cab. The truck shuddered, he wrestling the wheel. I knew he'd never driven such a beast, but fear made him reckless. In chaos, the bald man shoved me down. Knife clattered away. He lunged, hands choking my throat. His breath stank of cheap liquor, suffocating. I grabbed a rock, smashed his temple. He howled, releasing me. I rolled, gasping, whirled, spinning. Through the haze, I saw Mark glaring out the windshield. Lightning flashed, 3 figures reflected. Engine roared, tires screeched. The massive truck leapt like a beast, charging forward. The two scattered, but the bald man too slow. A horrific sound, flesh and bone against steel. His body flung, then vanished under. Mark screamed in the cab. The truck swerved, sparks bursting, then stalled, engine dying. I crawled near, pounding the door. "Mark, out, now!" But he shook his head, eyes wide, clinging to the wheel. I don't know how to drive this. I can't." The other two returned, faces twisted with rage. One drew a long blade, lightning glinting blood on steel. I tried to shout, but storm wind swallowed me. Seconds later, Mark's scream ripped the night. I couldn't see, but his silhouette thrashed in the cab, dragged out. The two hauled him, vanishing beyond the old wooden fence. I pushed up, but legs gave. My wound throbbed, breaths fading. I only watched, eyes blurred as rain poured, cold mixing with hot blood. An engine roared somewhere, then silence. Darkness swallowed all. When I woke, I was in a white hospital room. The sting of disinfectant, fluorescent lights stabbing. A nurse said they'd found me unconscious in the lot, knife deep but lucky not to hit an artery. I asked about Mark. Days later, a cop came, face grim. We found a male body in a ditch miles away. Multiple stab wounds. Matches the man you described. I sat silent. The world sank heavy. Sounds in the room echoed, the heart monitor's beeps, the drip of IV, all reminding me I lived, and he did not. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face looking back, fear and hope tangled. I tried, but failed. On America's highways, I'd seen accidents, tragedy, death. But for the first time, I understood clearly. Some fates, no matter how you struggle, are swallowed by darkness. And ever since, whenever I drive past an empty lot, I still hear Mark's whisper carried in the wind. They found me. Episode 2, The Beast in the Dark. I am David Thompson, 35 years old, an electrical engineer. My wife, Emily, and I had planned a short vacation in Maine for months. After exhausting weeks of work in Boston, we wanted to escape the smoke and cold glass towers and seek the fresh ocean breeze. That night, we left the main highway to follow a narrow road cutting through the forest. The clock showed nearly 10 o'clock, the sky pitch black as if painted with ink. Only the car's headlights carved 2 faint beams of light across the narrow road, strewn with fallen pine needles. The forest wind seeped through the window cracks, carrying the sharp scent of pine resin mixed with the damp earth after the afternoon rain. The sound of tires rolling on the wet pavement was like a steady whisper, lulling me into a trance. Emily sat in the passenger seat, her head leaning against the window, her brown hair catching a faint golden glow from the car lights. "Are you sure we're not lost?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with worry. I smirked, though my eyes stayed fixed on the darkness ahead. Number GPS still says straight ahead. Just about 30 more miles to Kennebunkport. Emily sighed in relief, then reached out to turn on the radio. But only static hissed back. She twisted the knob, switching stations endlessly, but all were nothing but noise. I realized then that we were in the middle of a dense forest, no signal escaping. Silence returned to the cabin. Only the hum of the fan and the pounding of my heart filled the air. Just then, I saw a faint light ahead. An old gas station by the roadside. The neon sign, open, flickered, sputtering on and off like the labored breath of a dying man. "Let's stop a bit," Emily said. "I need coffee. Besides, I'm getting a little sleepy." I nodded, steering into the empty lot. All around us loomed the pitch-black forest, the station a lonely, glowing box in the wilderness. When I shut off the engine, the silence was so heavy I could hear the tick of the clock hand. We got out of the car. The stench of old gasoline hung in the air, acrid in my nose. On the tin roof, leftover rainwater dripped, ticking like an invisible metronome. Emily pulled her coat tighter and hurried inside. I stayed by the car, tilting my head back to breathe in the icy night wind. Then suddenly, I heard something strange. A heavy thumping. Thud. Thud. I turned my head, straining to see into the shadows behind the station. In the dim light, I glimpsed something standing still. A massive, black shape, unmoving, yet 2 glowing dots like animal eyes reflecting the light. My heart lurched. I blinked. Then the darkness was empty. Perhaps fatigue, I told myself. Emily was taking too long. I opened the door, about to go inside, when her voice rang out, trembling. "David!" I turned. Emily stood frozen at the glass door, her eyes locked on the ground before her. I rushed closer, following her gaze, and my heart stopped. Just a few meters away, a giant dog blocked the way, so massive its shoulders reached a grown man's waist. Its pitch-black fur glistened under the neon glow. It didn't bark, didn't growl, only stared silently at Emily. That gaze, it wasn't an animal's. It was deep, dark, filled with something like awareness. My breath caught in my throat. The stench of damp fur and wild musk wafted from it. Emily trembled, clutching the doorframe. I shouted, waving my arms to drive it off, "Get out!" But the dog didn't budge. Its eyes never left Emily, as if I were invisible. A shiver ran down my spine. I felt it wasn't here for me. It was here for her. The beast stepped closer. Its claws scraped the concrete with a metallic screech. I lunged forward, yanking my wife's arm, dragging her toward the car. "Get in!" I roared, my voice hoarse. We scrambled into the cabin, slamming the doors shut. As I twisted the key, the engine roared. Then bam! The car shuddered violently. Emily screamed. Through the windshield, I saw the beast slam headfirst into the hood. The impact shook the whole frame like a truck had rammed us. "Oh, God!" I gasped, sweat slipping from my palms onto the steering wheel. Without hesitation, I floored the accelerator. The tires screeched on the wet pavement, burning rubber filling the air. The car shot out of the lot, racing back into the forest road. In the rearview mirror, the massive shadow pursued us. It didn't bark, didn't snarl, only ran with long, heavy strides. Each pounding step echoed thud, 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 squeezing my chest tighter with every beat. Emily buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. "David, it's still behind us. It's chasing us." I glanced at the mirror. Yes. Even at over 60 miles per hour, it clung to us, the distance unchanged. Its stride was unnatural. Such a colossal body, yet moving fluidly, effortlessly, as if this speed were nothing but play. The stench of damp fur seeped through the cracks, chokingly strong. I rolled the window up, but the hot breath still seemed to press against us. "No way. No dog can run like this," I muttered, eyes locked on the speedometer hitting 90. Emily sobbed, her voice breaking. It's not a dog." We swerved around a sharp bend. For a second, I thought we had shaken it. But when the headlights swept across the road ahead, my heart froze. The beast stood there, in the middle of the road, only yards away, not panting, not exhausted, just waiting. I slammed the brakes. Tires screeched across the wet pavement, shrieking into the forest night. Emily was thrown forward, screaming. The car skidded to a stop, mere steps from the creature. It raised its head, eyes glowing in the beams. Then, to our horror, it slowly stood upright on its hind legs. Bones cracked, echoing in the dark. That form was no longer a dog. It towered above the car roof, shoulders bulging with muscle, its forelimbs, now resembling human arms, dangling with glinting claws. Emily sobbed, clutching me. It's a monster." I didn't think, only acted on instinct. I screamed, slammed the gas. The car roared, lunging forward. At the last instant, the creature leapt aside with impossible speed. A massive shadow swept past the windshield, leaving behind the stench of wild musk and damp soil. We sped onward, my heart pounding like it would burst. I dared not slow, driving madly, the wheels jolting across potholes. Behind us, silence returned. I checked the mirror. Nothing. The road lay empty, lined with mute trees. Emily quivered, whispering, It's gone?" I said nothing. My grip on the wheel was so tight my knuckles turned white. Inside, a dread gnawed at me. It hadn't gone, it was waiting. The car flew, speedometer climbing to 95. Sweat drenched my back. Emily huddled beside me, pale lips whispering prayers. Please, God, don't let it come back. I swallowed dryly, my throat raw, the bitter taste of sweat flooding my mouth. Every breath reeked of rust, of fear. We drove for miles, but I knew we weren't free. The next bend proved it. As we turned down a slope, there it was again. The beast stood in the road, not rushing, not panting, but upright like a statue, its yellow eyes fixed on us. Lightning cracked the sky, illuminating its twisted form. "No!" I screamed, slamming the brakes. The tires shrieked. Emily shrilled. The car spun out, skidding. In the final instant, I looked at my wife, her eyes wide with terror, her mouth calling my name. Then the world spun. Crash! The roar of metal shattering thundered. The car slammed head-on into another vehicle coming from the opposite curve. The impact crushed my chest like a sledgehammer. Bones shattered. My mind rang, ears drowned in static. Through the days, I heard glass shattering, smelled gasoline flooding, tasted the bitter iron of blood. I turned. Emily's seat was empty. "Emily!" I croaked. Through the shattered window, in the lightning flash, I saw her sprawled motionless on the road, her small body among shards of glass. I crawled out, torn and bleeding, pain nothing compared to the despair tearing me apart. I collapsed beside her, shaking her in the pounding rain. "Wake up! Emily, please!" No answer. Her eyes closed, hair matted with blood, her delicate face now cold. Thunder boomed like a funeral drum. Then, from the shadows, it emerged. The colossal beast appeared under the lightning, stepping slowly closer. Its footsteps pounded deep, its stench spreading thick. Its eyes fixed on Emily, as though it had awaited this moment. "No!" I screamed into the wind. I tried to shield her, but my arms were powerless. The beast stopped before me. A deep growl rumbled, not a dog's, but like boulders grinding in a cavern. It bent down, clamped Emily's body in its jaws. The reek of blood and beast filled my nose, making my stomach twist. "No, please, God, don't take her," I sobbed, broken. But the creature didn't glance at me. It turned, dragging Emily into the night. Its massive silhouette faded into the rain, footsteps thudding until silence swallowed them. I collapsed, drained. The world crumbled as the distant wail of sirens rose. When I awoke in the hospital, limbs in casts, wounds across my body, the doctor told me Emily had died instantly in the crash. They said I was delirious from trauma, and that there was no dog, no creature dragging her away. But I know I'm not mad. I saw it. I smelled its stench. I heard its heavy steps. In the long days after, I scoured forums, folklore, and then I found it, the Black Hound of Death, a New England legend. They say when it appears before someone, that person or their loved one will die horribly that night. It doesn't kill. It only comes to witness, to take. Now, every night I still hear its claws thudding outside my hospital window, slow, steady. I know, it hasn't left. And perhaps next time it will come for me. Episode 3, The Girl in the Rain. My name is Michael Anderson, 28 years old, an ordinary office worker in the suburbs of Philadelphia. The job confined within 4 glass walls every day had bored me to death. But that night, I wished I had stayed holed up in the office instead of being out on the road. It was pouring rain. The raindrops, like icy needles, struck the windshield, shattering into twisting streams of water. The wipers swept back and forth with a steady squeak, but they could not clear away the blinding white curtain of rain. The county road was desolate, cutting through the sparse forests of Pennsylvania. On both sides stood rows of bare, dark trees, swaying under gusts of wind. Now and then, lightning flashed, illuminating the forest for a fleeting instant before drowning everything back in darkness. The cold, damp smell of rain slipped into the cabin through the crack of the window, musty like long wet soil. I gulped down a sip of cold coffee, the bitter taste spreading in my throat, hoping to keep myself awake after the late shift. The clock had passed 11. I only wanted to get home, take a hot shower, and collapse on my old bed. But just then I saw her. Under the dim headlights, on the soaked roadside, a figure appeared. A young woman, slender, her black hair drenched and plastered to her face. She wore a dark red dress, soaked with rain, clinging to her frail body. She stood still, arms hanging loosely, making no sign for help. But her gaze, in the midst of the rain, made my heart stop. There was something both desperate and chilling in those eyes. I slowed down, the tires splashing water on both sides. For a moment I thought, just keep driving, pretend I saw nothing. But that thought was instantly crushed by guilt. On such a night, how could a young woman stand alone on an empty road? I rolled down the window, the cold air rushing in with the pounding rain. "Hey, are you all right? Need a ride?" The girl looked up. Pale brown eyes met mine, distant, as if from another place. Her lips moved, her voice trembling softly. "Sorry. Could you take me home?" The taxi driver left me here. Her voice was fragile, mingling with the rain like a whisper by my ear. For a brief moment I caught a strange scent. Faded roses, musty, damp. I nodded. "Get in. No one should be out here alone tonight." She opened the door and sat in the back seat. The soaked dress left a spreading stain on the upholstery. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror, a pale face, eyes heavy with sorrow. She did not look at me, only turned her face to the rain-streaked window outside. The air inside the car thickened. The scent of withered flowers and damp rain filled every breath. I steered the car forward, crawling through the dark road. But a vague premonition made me shiver. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. The car rolled slowly along the flooded road. The wind whistled through the cracks like someone lamenting. I glanced again in the mirror. She sat upright, hands on her lap, eyes fixed on the rain outside. She hadn't spoken another word since. The streetlights flickered past, casting a sickly yellow on her face, pale, fragile like wax. "Where do you live?" I asked, trying to break the heavy silence. She was silent for a few seconds. I thought she hadn't heard. But then, in a whisper like the wind, she answered. "At the end of this road, turn left, then 10 more minutes." That was all, no more, no less. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Inside the car, the scent of wilted roses grew stronger, overpowering the stale coffee and damp upholstery. It choked me, like breathing in mold. "You lived here long?" I tried again, just to fill the void. This time, she gave no answer. Only the pounding rain drummed on the roof. My grip on the wheel tightened, cold, spreading from my fingertips. The farther we went, the emptier the road became. On both sides, only dense darkness of trees, no lights of houses. Finally, after a winding bend, a house emerged through the rain. A 2-story wooden house, old, with a steep roof, surrounded by a decaying fence. A faint yellow porch light flickered, on the verge of going out. "We're here," the girl murmured, for the first time turning her eyes on me. I stopped at the gate. She opened the door and stepped out. The soaked red dress clung to her frame, rain dripping onto the gravel. Before leaving, she turned back. "Could you leave your phone for me?" "I need to call my parents to open the door. I'll give it back right away." The request made me hesitate. But the look in her eyes, tired, pleading, made it impossible to refuse. I nodded, placing my phone on the doorstep. "Don't be long," I said. "I need to get home." She gave a faint smile, then walked into the porch. The creaking wooden door opened, swallowing her figure inside. I sat, waiting in the car, watching the clock. 5 minutes passed, then 10. She did not come back. The rain fell heavier. The windshield was misted over, fog clouding it. I wiped it with my hand, my palm icy cold. "This is weird," I muttered, stepping out of the car. The gravel crunched under my feet. The smell of rot and mildew wafted from the fence. I knocked on the door, the sound echoing hollowly inside the house. No one answered. I knocked harder. After a moment, the door creaked open. An old woman, white-haired, hunched, leaning on a cane, appeared. She looked at me with suspicion. "Who are you? Why are you knocking on my door at this hour?" I froze. "Sorry, your daughter just came home. I gave her a ride. She said she'd use my phone to call someone." The old woman frowned, then shook her head. "What are you talking about? I live alone. I don't have a daughter." The blood in my veins turned to ice. "No, you're mistaken. She wore a red dress, around 20. The woman stared at me for a long moment, then slowly turned to point at a wall inside. "Who are you talking about? Do you mean the one in that photo?" I looked up. The dim yellow light revealed a large framed photo hanging in the entryway. A young woman in a red dress, long black hair, that same face, those same eyes. Beneath the photo, withered roses surrounded a glass vase. A faint incense smoke drifted up, carrying the exact musty scent that had filled my car. I went numb. The old woman continued, her voice steady but chilling. "My daughter. She died in a car accident 15 years ago." I stood frozen before the photo. A shiver shot down my spine, deep into my bones. It was her, the dark red dress, the drenched hair, the distant eyes. But beneath the picture, the brass plate was clear. Sarah Thompson, 1987 to 2008. My mouth gaped, breath stuck in my throat. No, impossible. I just drove her here. She was sitting in my back seat. The old woman looked at me, her eyes both pained and doubtful. A young man, Sarah, my girl, died on a night like this. The taxi left her by the roadside. Another driver promised to take her home, but the car lost control at the curve. They found her body miles away. My ears buzzed. Outside, the rain battered the porch roof, like the sky itself was breaking apart. For a moment, I caught that familiar scent. Wilted roses, mingled with damp rain. I turned toward my car. Through the blur of rain, the back seat bore a spreading stain, exactly where she had sat. But the phone I had left on the doorstep was gone. I trembled violently. Did you see anyone leave the house?" The old woman said nothing, her eyes shimmering with tears. Then she slowly closed the door, leaving me standing in the rain. I returned to my car, heart pounding wildly. Sitting behind the wheel, I drew a deep breath to calm myself. But when I looked into the rearview mirror, my blood froze. On the back seat, she was sitting there. Water dripped from her drenched hair onto the floor. Her face was ashen, lips bluish. Her hollow brown eyes were staring straight at me through the mirror. I went rigid, my hands shaking on the wheel. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. She whispered, her voice faint like the wind seeping through cracks. "You brought me home, but I never got inside." Her icy breath swept across the back of my neck, the scent of wilted roses flooding the cabin. I choked, my heart about to explode. Then, click, the lights went out. The world plunged into thick darkness, with only the rain pounding like funeral drums. In a flash of lightning outside the window, I saw her vanish. The back seat was empty, only a puddle spreading, wide as a bloodstain. When I woke, it was daylight. My car was parked on the roadside, not far from that house. But now the house was nothing but a collapsed ruin, abandoned for years. No porch light, no old woman, no photo. I looked at the back seat, still, damp with a cold stain. And my phone? Lying neatly there, screen glowing. One unread message. I opened it. Only one line. "Thank you for bringing me home. Sarah." Since that night, I've never taken that road again, but every time the rain pours in the rearview mirror, I swear I still catch a glimpse of the girl in the red dress sitting in the back seat, her distant eyes gazing into endless darkness. Episode 4. The Warning at the Gas Station. I am Brian Carter, 21 years old, a junior at the University of Texas. That summer, I decided to drive from Austin back home to Amarillo to visit my family. A 7-hour trip wasn't unfamiliar to me, but that night, I chose the wrong road. The map on my phone suddenly lost signal. The main highway was blocked due to an accident, and I had no choice but to turn onto a nearly forgotten back road. The Texas night stretched endlessly, dry fields swaying in the wind, with only the distant red lights of giant wind turbines blinking on and off. The clock read nearly 11. The gas tank was less than a quarter full. I started to worry. The dry, hot wind carried the smell of dust and metal from the car, making my throat parched. Luckily, a few minutes later, I saw a faint light ahead, an old gas station on the roadside. The faded sign read "Harper's Gas," swaying in the wind. Only a single yellow bulb hung over the entrance, flickering like it was about to die. I pulled in. The cracked concrete lot reeked of oil stains. Everything was eerily quiet, only the distant hum of insects breaking the silence. As I stepped out, a click sounded. The station's glass door creaked open. An old man, gaunt, wearing a faded shirt and worn-out overalls, stepped out. His face was hollow, eyes sunken beneath the brim of a cap. He stared at me for a long time, then spoke in a raspy voice. "Young man, where are you headed at this hour?" I scratched my head. I'm going back to Amarillo. GPS cut out, so I stopped here for some gas." The old man stayed quiet for a moment, his eyes narrowing. Then he slowly shook his head. "Listen, you shouldn't keep going. Turn back. Tonight, this road is not safe." I shivered. "Not safe? What do you mean? Is there an accident?" He didn't answer directly. He only lifted his eyes to the endless dark road ahead. A gust of wind carried the acrid smell of burning straw, making the hairs on my neck stand up. "Tonight, they're hunting," he whispered. "You don't want to meet them." I froze, my heart pounding. His words, vague as they were, carried a chilling certainty. For a moment, I truly hesitated. But reason pushed it aside. I forced a laugh. "Sir, I just need a full tank. I really have to get home. My mom's waiting." His eyes grew heavy with something unspoken. Slowly, he stepped back inside, his voice drifting out from the shadows of the shop. "If you won't listen, don't say I didn't warn you." I swallowed hard, hurrying back to the car, an uneasy feeling gnawing at me. That gas station. Why was it so empty? No staff, no customers. Just the old man and his eyes like they could see right through me. When the engine started, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The station's door was shut tight. The yellow bulb flickered once, then went out. The gas station disappeared behind me as if it had never existed. The road stretched endlessly ahead, black as a pit swallowing my headlights. I gripped the wheel tight, the old man's hoarse warning echoing in my head. "Tonight, they're hunting." The speedometer hovered just over 60 miles per hour. It was so quiet I could hear the ticking of my wristwatch. The hot plastic smell of the car mixed with the stale scent of dry grass seeping in from outside. Half an hour passed, the thick darkness dragging my body into fatigue. I switched on the radio, hoping for some familiar country music, but all I got was static, warped voices whispering in some alien tongue. I shuddered and shut it off. The tires hit a pothole, jolting the car. I flicked the high beams and my heart stopped. Standing in the middle of the road, just a few dozen meters away, was a figure. Tall, thin, dressed in a pitch-black coat, hood pulled low. The figure didn't move, didn't step aside, just stood there, blocking the lane. Panic surged. I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched, the stench of burning rubber filling the air. The headlights lit the figure. But in an instant, it was gone. The road was empty. I gaped, heart pounding. No. I had seen it. I knew I had. I drew a deep breath, forced myself forward. But each passing minute only tightened the fear inside me. Every time my headlights swept across the darkness, I caught glimpses. Shadows slipping along the roadside, left, then right. Always gone the next instant. Even the air changed. No longer dry grass, now it reeked of rust, sharp and metallic, like dried blood. Nausea rose in my throat. No, I'm just tired, seeing things, I muttered to myself, though my hands trembled on the wheel. Then, thud, a heavy slam on the roof of the car. I jumped, slamming the brakes. My heart nearly burst. I looked through the windshield, nothing. Only a light drizzle beginning to fall. But when I tilted the rearview mirror, my blood froze. A handprint smeared across the back window. Fingers long, unnaturally so, streaking downward like trails of blood. I screamed, flooring the gas. The tires sprayed water as the car shot into the night. Through the howl of the wind, I heard whispers, faint but unmistakable, layered voices overlapping one another. Don't go on. Turn back. Turn back. I clenched my teeth, vision blurring. The road ahead was an abyss with no end. And in that moment I understood the old man had been telling the truth. There was something on this road, and it was hunting me. Rain thickened, pounding on the windshield. The wipers swiped furiously, but the sheet of water only blurred everything worse. I had no idea how long I'd been driving. The road stretched endlessly. No signs, no cars, no lights, but my own pale beams. Then, like an apparition, a building appeared by the roadside. A 2-story house, weathered wooden walls, windows black as holes. The sign, half fallen, still bore faint letters. Mirror Inn. A chill stabbed down my spine, but exhaustion weighed on me, my eyelids heavy. Against every instinct I pulled in, the door creaked open, and the stench of mold rushed my nose, damp and rotting like years-old fungus. I raised my phone flashlight, sweeping across the lobby. My chest tightened. The walls were covered in mirrors. Big mirrors, small ones, round, warped. Dozens of them, dust-coated, but still reflecting faint shards of light. Every step I took was echoed by countless figures of myself. Yet something was off. Some moved a beat slower than I did. Some smiled, though my lips never moved. Cold crept across my body, my skin crawling. I turned to leave, but the wooden door slammed shut behind me, click, as though locked by an unseen hand. Footsteps echoed, not mine. At the end of the hallway, a tall shadow flickered across a mirror, then vanished. My heartbeat thundered, the air heavy with the metallic stench of blood. I stumbled back, my light sweeping across the mirrors. And in a large, cracked mirror in the center of the hall, I saw them. A group cloaked in black. Dozens of them, hoods pulled low, faces hidden, only pale, long hands visible. I screamed, spinning around, nothing behind me, but in the mirror they remained. Slowly, one by one, they raised bloody hands and pressed them against the glass, leaving smeared crimson trails. Panic surged. I rammed my shoulder into the door, wood splintering but holding fast. In the mirrors, my reflection changed. My skin drained white, eyes blackened, mouth twisting into a grotesque grin. "No," I whispered, throat burning dry. A nearby mirror cracked. From its jagged seam, a skeletal hand burst out, clamping onto my arm, cold, slimy, corpse-like. I shrieked, thrashing. All the mirrors cracked at once, the sound crashing like a storm. From within, countless hands reached out, pulling, dragging me in. The whispers roared in unison, dozens of voices overlapping. "We've been waiting for you." With one final desperate burst, I hurled myself into the door. It exploded open. I tumbled onto the wet ground outside, rain lashing my face, lungs burning with the scent of wet grass. When I looked up, the house was gone. Only empty fields swaying in the storm. No mirrors, no trace. The next morning, I woke in my car, slumped over the wheel. Harsh sunlight streamed through the windshield. Blinking, I looked around. Before me stretched only the highway, straight and endless. No mirror in. I started the car, heart still racing. For a moment, relief washed over me. Maybe it had all been a dream. But when I glanced at the rearview mirror, I froze. On the back window, the long handprint remained, smeared with dark, crimson stains. And in the mirror, my reflection didn't move. It only smiled. Episode 5. Echoes from the Abandoned Hospital. My name is Ethan Miller, 23 years old, a journalism student. I've always liked chasing stories in haunted places, abandoned sites. And that night, my 3 friends, Jack, Melissa, and Chloe, and I picked the wrong place to test our courage. It was Riverside Asylum, a psychiatric hospital abandoned for more than 40 years on the outskirts of Ohio. People said there had once been a mysterious fire there. Dozens of patients burned alive in locked rooms. After that, the hospital was closed forever. Locals still whispered, at night, if you passed by, you might hear laughing or crying from inside. Some swore they had seen figures in patient gowns peering from the shattered windows. Exactly the kind of place we wanted to try. The pickup truck stopped in front of a rusted iron gate. Vines covered it. The sign, Riverside State Hospital, dangled on one side, letters faded. The night was moonless, only wind whistling through cracks, carrying the damp, musty smell of mold. Jack laughed loudly, slinging his backpack over his shoulder. "Here it is, a million views content goldmine. Ethan, start filming." I turned on the camera, the flashlight mounted on it, shining across the corroded gate. The microphone caught only the sound of howling wind and the creak of the hinges as we pushed it open. Chloe shivered, pulling her jacket tighter. "I don't know if this is a good idea. This place smells awful." Indeed, the air was thick with rot, with a burnt wood scent that clung to the throat. Melissa, the boldest of us, snapped on her flashlight. "Don't worry, places like this are all rumors. Let's go." We stepped into the main hallway. Paint peeled in huge patches, exposing bare plaster. Rusted medical signs still clung to the walls, Ward C and Ward D smeared. Beneath our feet, shards of glass crunched with every step. I swept the camera along the endless rows of doors. Many were still locked, bars blackened with rust, as though meant to keep something inside rather than outside. Suddenly, a sound echoed. Clang, clang, metal striking somewhere in rhythm, like a spoon against iron bars. We all froze, flashlights jerking side to side. "Beep, probably just the wind," Jack stammered, voice trembling. Melissa shook her head. What kind of wind keeps time like that? My heart pounded. The camera captured everything. The metallic knocks, the heavy breathing of the group. My throat went dry, the moldy air choking me. Then, from deep within the darkness, a whisper came. You shouldn't be here. The whisper vanished, swallowed by thick silence. Only our ragged breaths and a faint, distant squeal of metal remained. I shone the light toward the sound. The walls looked charred, mottled like burned flesh. For a heartbeat, I swore I saw a pale hand clutching the bars, but when I moved closer, there was nothing but cold, rusted iron. Melissa frowned, snapping photos rapidly. If we catch anything on film, tonight will be worth it. Jack forced a laugh, voice trembling. Yeah, maybe. We pushed on toward Ward C. Every door was closed tight, old patient nameplates barely legible. I aimed the light through a crack. Inside, pure blackness, with a stench of mold and a burnt smell, like scorched hair. Suddenly, Chloe gasped, "Do you hear that?" We went still. And yes, from deeper in the corridor came a faint laugh. Not joyous, but rasping, distorted, like someone choking while trying to laugh. Ice ran down my spine. The laughter bounced off the walls, making it impossible to tell where it came from. We pressed forward, reaching a door left ajar. Its plate read, Patient 42, Isolation. Jack swallowed hard, muttering, Isolation room. I pushed it open. Inside, 4 bare gray walls, one corner scorched black. On the wall, deep scratches remained. Someone had clawed into the cement, scrawling words in jagged desperation. They won't let me out. They whisper all night. The air grew thick, pressing down on my chest. The acrid stench of smoke and burnt hair made me gag. Suddenly, the camera flickered. On screen flashed a figure, a patient gown, bald head, burned face, curled in the corner. But when I lowered the camera, the room was empty. Ethan, what was that, just now? Chloe whispered, trembling. I couldn't answer. Cold sweat stung my eyes, dripping onto the lens. The knocking returned. Clang, 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 konomak. But now it came from every direction, rapid and overlapping, dozens of hands striking bars. The sound filled the hall, reverberating in my chest, my ears ringing. Melissa's face drained of color. We should leave. We turned back, flashlight sweeping the corridor. Every door now stood wide open. In the darkness behind the bars, figures lined up, motionless, heads tilted at unnatural angles. Their eyes were hollow voids, glinting like bottomless pits in the beam of our lights. A freezing gust swept past us, reeking of scorched blood. And all of them whispered in unison, "You shouldn't be here." The whispers swelled, deafening, pressing in from every side. The shadows inside the rooms began to stir. Patients staggered out, jerking, dragging chains that no longer existed. "Run!" I shouted. We bolted down the hall, lights flailing wildly. Smoke seeped through cracks, acrid and choking, burning my eyes. Behind us, uneven footsteps shuffled closer and closer. Jack reached the emergency door first, shoving it open. But beyond, only another endless corridor, identical and dark. "No, no way!" Jack screamed, pounding the wall until his hand bled. Melissa pulled me. "Another way! Hurry!" We turned into Ward D. Here, the walls were blackened, consumed entirely by fire. On the ceiling, an old fluorescent light flickered once, twice, then died, leaving a strobe afterimage that seared into my vision. In that final flash, I saw them clearly. Rows of charred patients filling the hall, their skin cracked, hair burned away, eye sockets hollow. They tilted their heads all at once, toward us. Chloe shrieked, spinning to run, but a hand, cold as ice, shot from the shadows and seized her wrist. She screamed, clawing at the wall until her nails tore and blood smeared the concrete. In a heartbeat, the darkness swallowed her whole. "Chloe!" I screamed, but Jack yanked me back. "We can't save her. Move!" The whispers grew louder, rising into a chorus of wails. "Don't leave. Stay with us." We scrambled toward a collapsed stairwell. The rotten floor cracked beneath our weight. Melissa slipped. I caught her just in time. I looked up, and my heart froze. At the top of the stairs, dozens of burned faces leaned down, eyes glowing like embers. Their mouths opened in unison. "We are still missing." Without thinking, I dragged Melissa back, Jack close behind. The hallway stretched endlessly, every window sealed tight. Sweat and grime clung to my skin, my breath ragged. Then, light. At the far end, a door burst open, revealing the night outside, rain pouring down. We hurled ourselves through, tumbling into the wet grass. Cold wind slapped my face, smelling of earth and rust. When I turned back, there was no building. Only a collapsed brick wall, smothered in vines. Riverside Asylum was gone. Only Jack, Melissa, and I lay gasping in the rain. Chloe was gone completely. The next morning, police came after locals reported screams. They searched the grounds but found only the crumbling foundation of Riverside, rotted for decades. "There's no building here," the officer insisted. But I knew I wasn't dreaming. My camera still had battery. When I replayed it, the final recording showed the endless corridor, doors swinging open, and at the very end, Chloe being dragged into the darkness, hands outstretched in desperate plea. The whispers followed, hissing from the speakers, chilling me to the core. We are still missing one. Episode 6. The Darkness Behind America. My name is Dr. Samuel Hayes, 42 years old, lecturer in psychology and criminology in Chicago. But for over a year now, I have pursued a bizarre, almost obsessive research. Why do disappearances and supernatural phenomena across America share a common thread? I began collecting files. A family in Maine vanished after moving into an old house by the woods, where neighbors swore they had seen a figure standing in the attic. A young driver in Pennsylvania called the police about a girl in the rain. Then, later his mind collapsed. He never drove at night again. A student in Texas recounted an experience at a mirror house in the middle of a highway, with proof being a long, bloody handprint smeared across his car window. And most recently, the case of 3 students in Ohio, only 2 returned, insisting their friend was dragged into an abandoned hospital that had been in ruins for decades. Each story sounded like fiction, but when I laid out a map of America and marked each case, the back of my neck went cold. They were all on the same line, a diagonal line stretching from the northeast down to the south, cutting through small towns, sparse forests, forgotten roads. Like a long scar no one in the country could see. That night, I sat alone in my office, the yellow lamplight spilling across thick stacks of files. Outside the window, the autumn wind howled, carrying the damp, earthy scent of rotting leaves. I sipped the bitter coffee, the burnt aroma of roasted beans sharpening my senses. On the desk was something unusual, an old VHS tape sent anonymously. Shaky handwriting on the label read, "Watch when alone." My heart pounded. I slid the tape into the dusty player. The screen flickered, then revealed distorted, grainy images. First, a long corridor, familiar, Riverside Asylum. The camera shook violently. Heavy breathing filled the speakers, and at the far end stood a girl in a red dress, drenched, motionless. Next flash, a room full of mirrors, each one reflecting dozens of warped, laughing faces. Then a wooden house, the attic pitch black, a window half open. A shadow moved behind the curtain. Each frame lasted only seconds, layered, chaotic. Finally, the screen went black. And then a whispering voice, layered, overlapping, like hundreds speaking in unison from afar. We are one. I leapt up, heart hammering out of my chest. Cold sweat trickled down my forehead, my throat choked dry. This could not be coincidence. Those stories, those people, they were all touching the same entity, the same origin. I scrawled in my notebook, all are just doors. But doors to where? After that night with the VHS tape, I knew there was no turning back. Those fragments of horror, the house, the girl in red, the mirror house, the abandoned hospital, they were links in a chain. I had to go to the intersection point on the map. That point lay in the remote countryside of West Virginia, in a forgotten forest called Black Hollow. The road barely showed on GPS, just faint, jagged lines like scars. I drove out of Chicago on a bleak gray morning. The sky was heavy, clouds pressing low, turning daylight into ash. The further I went, the more desolate it became. Houses vanished, replaced only by thick forests, branches like skeletal fingers clawing at my car. The smell of damp rot seeped in through the cracks, earthy like freshly dug graves. My throat burned dry, and when I sipped water, the metallic tang of iron made me grimace. Reaching a small town near Black Hollow, I stopped at a roadside diner. The door creaked, inside only a few locals. Silence fell as I entered. Their eyes followed me, as though I had trespassed an unspoken law. An old waitress, skin wrinkled like worn paper, set a cup of coffee before me. Her voice rasped, "No one goes to Black Hollow after dark, you know." I looked up. "Why?" She gave a brittle laugh, one that never reached her eyes. "Go and you'll see." Evening fell, and I drove on. The road into Black Hollow narrowed, steep, forests looming dark on both sides. The car radio suddenly crackled, voices breaking into whispers. I turned it down, but my heart raced. The voice was the same as on the VHS. At the final turn, I stopped. Before me stood a rusted iron gate, bent, half buried in the ground. A crooked wooden sign hung loosely, the faded words still readable. Riverside Facility. Closed 1973. My chest tightened. Riverside? But Riverside Asylum was in Ohio. Why here too? I stepped out, the wind whistling through the forest, carrying a sharp, burnt stench like singed hair. My skin prickled. For an instant, I saw a figure standing silently behind the gate. Tall, gaunt, cloaked in black. I blinked, gone. I squeezed through the rusted gate. The dirt path wound into a forest shrouded in thick fog. Each crunch of leaves underfoot sounded like whispers. With every step, the air grew heavier. My heartbeat pounded louder in my chest. Then, another sound. "We are still missing." I froze. The voice overlapped, echoing from the trees, the earth, from inside my ribs. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. But when I turned back, the path was gone. No car, no gate, only endless night and towering trees. I understood. I had already stepped through the door. Fog devoured all directions. I wandered like a sleepwalker, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. The burnt stench mixed with damp earth churned my stomach. Ahead, a clearing appeared. Barren ground in the forest. And there, a building, half buried, half risen from the earth. Its warped structure looked frozen, mid-burn, as though licked by fire then turned to stone. Broken windows reflected pale moonlight, like hollow eye sockets. A tall iron door hung ajar, scorched handprints smeared across its surface. I touched it. The metal burned with icy cold. The door groaned, open, like a weary sigh. Inside was pitch black. I flicked on my flashlight. Narrow corridors stretched, lined with bent iron bars. The walls were scarred with black scorch marks. The air thick with the reek of old blood and burnt hair. I passed each cell door. The walls were clawed raw, thousands of scratch marks layered atop one another, as though people had tried to dig their way out with bare nails. Amid the gouges, one trembling line of writing stood out, "We are one. We are the door." My chest tightened. "The door? To where?" I whispered. The flashlight flickered. For a brief flash, I saw faces. Hundreds of them, patients, drivers, girls, the missing, all pressed against the bars, staring at me with milky eyes. I stumbled back, but the hallway trembled, and every cell door burst open at once. They staggered out, shuffling, footsteps dragging across the floor. "Who are you?" I screamed, throat constricted. They answered as one, voices layered. "We are the voices, the darkness, the door you just walked through." I trembled, realizing all those scattered stories across America were fragments. All the figures, Jake, the girl in red, the burnt patients, were body parts of the same entity. At the end of the corridor, a massive door rose from the earth. Faces bulged from its surface, moaning, twisted smiles. From beyond it came a roar, thousands of throats crying out together, "Missing you." I hurled the flashlight and ran. But no matter where I turned, the corridor bent back to the same place. The door. A loop with no escape. In despair, I glimpsed myself in a cracked mirror, but the reflection did not run. It stood still, grinning wide, eyes black as tar. "No," I whispered, my skin splitting apart. The air quaked. Thousands of hands reached out, cold and slimy, seizing me. They dragged me toward the door. I screamed, but my voice dissolved into the whispers, now complete. I jolted awake. My head lay on the desk in my Chicago office. Dawn's light filtered through the window, the stack of files still there, the VHS tape still on the table. It was only a nightmare? I exhaled, wiping cold sweat. But when I glanced at the wall mirror, my heart froze. In the glass, I still sat there, but with a twisted grin and eyes black as void.